Video game franchise Mortal Kombat has such a varied roster and crazy powers that they ended up creating something perfect for us to speculate on. Meet Arcana. Hello everyone! Arcana is a mystic source of powers introduced by the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie, given to the warriors of Earthrealm to give them a fighting chance against the evil forces of Bad Guy Land. And now we're going to reimagine this Arcana through a spec evil lens, explaining all the interesting stuff going on. Test your might by pushing those like and sub buttons if you like this video. And now, without further ado, let's get started. Every time. I swear every time we look outside our window, it feels like something new is threatening the world. If it's not climate change, it's some virus or giant space god or something. And now it turns out there's other realms beyond our Earth, and they are hosting some tournament thing, and if we lose we get invaded. Heck, why bother? They'll probably cheat and take us out before that or something. Because guess what? Humans can't do squat here. Have you seen those guys? They have a 10-foot tall dude with 4 arms. They have omega particles and metahumans. We have a sort of actor and a lady with a gun. Lucky for us, this Raiden guy apparently has taken it up to protect Earthrealm, as he calls it. So he hooked us up with this organism that now we get to study. Lucky us. The dragon marking, as we'd call it by its look, or Dracosemius Cratosiphos, an organism we have tentatively placed in its own domain of life, termed Arcanus, its similarities to other known clades notwithstanding. This dragon marking is a manifestation of an interdimensional organism, one which we could most easily compare to a fungus. It grows along the edges of its realm, passively channeling vast amounts of the energy that flows freely in its environment to grow and feed. However, the most fascinating ability of this organism is its capacity to travel between known realms, which are not the same thing as universes, don't get me started on that. And it does so by concentrating the energy it possesses to open holes from one into the other, upon which it can obtain whatever nutrients it needs at the moment before returning to its native realm. Boy, it makes you feel safe, doesn't it? Taking advantage of the organism's natural properties, this Raiden fella would use it as a direct interface to a source of infinite energy, which could be utilized by any living being the marking grew on. And should its host be terminated, Dracosemius would simply extend itself towards the closest host, usually whoever had taken out its last one. SWRC personnel are advised to stay as far away from people with the marking as possible. Given its intended purpose of protecting Earthrealm, Raiden would immediately sever its connection to anyone from outside the realm who intended to use its power against those he protected. Similar to its Earthrealm counterparts, the dragon marking would grow a network of tissue within the bodies of its hosts, which... ew. But the energy present in its natural environment would still flow through it, fueling its own biological processes, and, upon interfacing and infecting a living body, the marking will produce a series of alterations, improving the already present abilities and modifications present in its host, including, surprisingly, their fighting style. While this organism is non-sapient and lacks a biological basis on which to judge the merits of something as subjective as how an organism, well, fights, its particular biology still allows it to adapt in very interesting and intuitive ways. After all, Dracosemius' entire physiology focuses on channeling energy, and by sensing the points through which energy is utilized as the body moves, it will begin adapting to conducting energy through these points. A martial arts user, for example, used to both give and take hits on a regular basis, had his body covered in several layers of impervious armor as the organism's network responds to points where stress is applied, absorbing any energy received and redirecting it through the martial artist's body as it moves. Other hosts, particularly those used to relying on long-range weaponry, would have the marking react to the host's mental input by creating energy ports tasked with releasing energy alone. A series of resonators would allow this energy to be amplified and channeled in specific ways from the host's body. A particularly fascinating case is that of individuals presenting artificial modifications, such as prostheses. In these cases, the marking would specially concentrate on these alterations, with them being a more stable substrate on which the organism could establish itself. In the two particular cases we are seeing today, two prosthetic arms were greatly enhanced using the underlying biological and mechanical structures as a basis for the organism to extrapolate, creating layers that mimicked the biological on top of the mechanical, as well as strengthening the biological components for these arms to be given structural and energetic support. In the case of the artificial eye seen here, the network mimicked the neural components to allow this new structure to still work as a sensing organ, while also turning it into a port through which massive amounts of energy could be channeled. However, as we've learned, some hosts were capable of using their bond with Dracosemius to a greater degree, as the expansion of their abilities through meditation and a deeper connection would allow them to more finely tune how this organism acted through their bodies, manipulating energy and matter itself, a phenomenon we've seen on our files before. Some, for instance, would apply the energy channeled by the organism to induce ignition of matter around them, or even shooting huge amounts of particles to create obscuring smoke screens out of their bodies, a specialty of stealth-favoring warriors. Some others would take advantage of the way the organism moves by transporting their own bodies, taking them out of the realm they are in and inserting them back in a different place, or using a similar application to move objects at a distance, using their intention alone to direct the dragon marking. This degree of raw energy manipulation would, quite interestingly, turn out to have unexpected side effects on the host, with the bond formed between the two sometimes surviving even after death. Here we see a particular individual that was so connected to Dracosemius that the organism managed to keep him alive even after death, animating his body and even creating a reproduction of his living brain through its own tissue alone. Not all who managed to use these abilities, however, were tied to Raiden and his noble pursuit, as they would learn to attract and channel the organism on their own. They would form their own clans and orders, and through extreme training and experimentation, learn to use the power of the marking in a unique way, not to utilize its energy, but to have it absorb all energy from their environment, becoming capable of cooling everything around them to sub-zero temperatures. All in all, the fate of our realm depends on this ragtag bunch of lads that has been altered by this organism, and I for one can only say, we're so freaking boned. And that's it for a speculative biology look into Mortal Kombat's Arcana. And interesting addition to the Mortal Kombat lore indeed. And it opened the doors for something spec-evo-y in a way the regular powers present in the series may have not. And don't worry, I still plan to take on some of the non-human species seen in the games at some point. I know there have been some suggestions for them along the way, so we'll get there in time. Now, if you're a long-time watcher, you probably have realized I love fungi. And if you are not a long-time viewer, hi! Nice having you here. The idea of an amazing power source that connected to a marking appearing on people's skin immediately made me think of fungi, and a fungal-like organism that used this power source to transport itself along universes was something I latched onto immediately. Especially since the combination of organic host and artificial improvements gave me a chance to redesign the characters in a much more biomechanical type of way, which was incredibly fun to do. So, big thank yous to everyone who wanted to see something from the Mortal Kombat series. I'll be doing more of that in the future. And also, thank you to our researchers and research associates who support us through Patreon and YouTube memberships. A special thanks to Jackson Younger, who commissioned this episode and worked with me on bringing it to life. Yay! Remember, you too can join in if you want to support our channel, and you get some nice perks too, like seeing all of our creatures and videos ahead of time and helping mold them into shape. Or you can also like, subscribe, or write a comment telling me any type of creature you would like me to give the Speculative treatment in the show. Any of those really help the channel a lot. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time on the Speculative Wildlife Research Center.